homesteading and taking on all these responsibilities and living like this is not a way that I've always lived. Part of the reason that I enjoy it the way I do is because I have lived the keeping up with the Jones, 9 to 5, commuting, eating dinner in front of the television life, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my, hopefully, 80 years existing in that way. And so homesteading has come with a lot of other changes, but they're welcome changes. I bought this place a year and a half ago. I moved here last February, and I have slowly been turning it into my regenerative homestead. And down here, these chickens will be future layers. So they're too young to lay right now. I got them as chicks at the beginning of this year. I'll sell some of them, I'll keep some of them just to have younger chickens in my flock and keep the production up. I have 2 turkeys. So I raised turkeys for meat last year, and I kept a breeding pair so that I can try to hatch their eggs the next time that I want turkeys. But the crows tend to steal their eggs, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. I don't really have an answer for that right now. This is my current layer flock. So there's about 18 hens and 1 rooster in here, and I get just shy of a dozen eggs a day. Most of these chickens I got as chicks last year, and so they're about a year old. So with these sheep, I've always wanted an animal that I could ultimately use for dairy, and cows are a little intimidating to me. But essentially I decided that this year I could either get a lawnmower or I could get a ruminant. So we got these 3 sheep. I say we, like there's more than just me. So I got these sheep instead of a piece of machinery. So when I first got here, this pasture was very tired. The woman who lived here before me had at least 1 horse. The area was definitely a little bit overgrazed, definitely acidic soil based on what was growing and what wasn't. So I'm working on rehabilitating this by rotationally grazing, not the chickens graze, but keeping everybody moving. The chickens add organic matter to the soil. They also forage for bugs, they keep the pest population down. The sheep will actually graze the grass. The turkeys will do some foraging too, and so keeping everybody moving, continuously adding organic matter to the soil, and just generally rehabilitating it. It already looks so much different than it did when I got here. There's still a lot of work to do, but I'm very, very happy with the progress so far. This is my very high-tech gate for the garden. It's a hay tie. And this is the garden space. The deer fence, this 10-foot tall fence around the entire perimeter of the garden, is a new addition because last year the deer came and just absolutely ravaged the garden. So I'm happy that I got green beans this year. That did not happen last year. And it makes me feel a whole lot better about investing the time and the energy that I do into the space, knowing that it's safe. As far as the vegetables go, I really try to apply the same principles of sustainability as I do the entire rest of the homestead. And so when you grow heirloom vegetables, you can save the seeds from those. They're not like hybrids. And so I can try to create a self-sustaining system in here, be able to save the seeds from this year, plant them next year, instead of having to continually add more financial inputs into it. And so the varieties that I grow in here are varieties that you can't really find at the grocery store for the most part. I have things like Roma tomatoes. I have stuff that you would recognize. But what I really enjoy about this space is that it's unique, and is that it's unique to me, and everyone's garden is going to be unique to themselves. This I call this the archway trellis. This is something that I wanted to install last year and just didn't have the time and extra money to do it. But this I installed by myself, so just drive the T-posts in and then waddle over with these 16-foot cattle panels and sort of just manhandle them into place and then just zip tie it. It's not very high tech, but it works. As far as maintaining the garden, I never water. Part of the reason that I decided on this place just a little bit north of Asheville, the Homestead, is because I knew that I didn't want to have to water things. The infrastructure associated with that and the time commitment associated with that is just not sustainable for me. So I intensely mulch with leaves and wood chips, whatever I can find, wherever I can find it. And that helps both build organic matter in the soil and improves the water retention of the soil. So other than watering right after I transplant these things out, I don't water. For example, it hasn't rained for a week here and it's been in the 90s, and these plants are fine. As far as other maintenance goes, a garden, you can invest as much time as you want into a garden. So I can come up here after work and spend the entire evening here if I want to, or I can, spend 10 minutes, harvest what needs to be harvested, pluck whatever needs to be plucked, and be done with it. It's whatever I'm willing to give to it at the time. So my home is an old house for sure. Every single room is, I'm pretty sure, original wood paneling. So every time I talk about tearing it out, I get told that's sacrilegious. So we'll see about how that ends up. It's very small. It's less than 1,000 square feet, but it's just me and the pets here. So that's really all I need. This is the living area, and this is the kitchen. The kitchen is one of the things that actually sold me on this house because as a person in general, but especially owning a homestead, the kitchen is like the centerpiece of the house. I spend the vast majority of my time in the house in the kitchen if I'm not asleep. So the fact that it's so large, has so much storage space, was really crucial, and I would love to at some point redo this, but the bones are here for a really great and really productive space. So to preserve what I'm harvesting from the garden, I am venturing into canning. That's not anything that I had ever done before I homesteaded. So there's pickles, which are preserved in vinegar. There's jam, which is preserved just by water bath canning. And then the tomatoes, the surplus of tomatoes, I will dice and can in here. Tomatoes are acidic enough that you don't have to add vinegar, but I do add a little bit of, I think it's citric acid, just to make sure that it tips the scales to be acidic enough to be shelf stable. So I'll freeze some stuff. I'll can some stuff. This year I'm trying to can more than I freeze just because I don't have a ton of freezer space. I have like 60 birds sitting in a freezer. So there's not a lot of room there, but I can always find spaces to put shelf stable things. My bedroom's pretty uneventful. I really only sleep in here. But this dresser, which is very dusty, don't look at the top, is actually part of a set that came from my grandparents that they bought in, I want to say the 70s. So not quite as old as the house, but almost. So there's this dresser, my nightstands are from the same set, and then the other dresser and bed frame in the other room are also from the same set. So that was really cool to be able to take a piece of furniture that I grew up seeing and has been around for a really long time, and to put that in my space. My name is Sage. I live on a homestead just a little bit north of Asheville, and I work as a project manager for an environmental consulting company. I went to school for geology. I ended up becoming a little bit of a soil science nerd, which is not what most geologists do. So I always say that I'm a geologist who hates rocks. I'm not about mineralogy. I'm all about soil. I'm all about water. I can't say that there's a particular moment that I knew that I wanted to have a homestead of my own, but over the course of the pandemic, honestly, and being stuck inside and trying to live vicariously through other people on YouTube, seeking out gardening videos, which turned into homesteading videos, witnessing that lifestyle and imagining being able to be in that space was so fulfilling that I honestly became a little obsessed with it. And it snowballed from there, and here I am. So building this place has been a process. I knew before I even had any idea that I wanted a homestead, I knew that I wanted to end up in the Asheville area. It's always felt very cozy to me. I really enjoy being close to the mountains. The climate is familiar to me. You know, it is hot here. It's rainy here, it's humid. I honestly love all of that. I know that might make me a little bit insane, but it's where I grew up, it's what I love. And so it's always just felt like home. And the fact that it rains so much here, the fact that the climate is what it is, lends itself very well to growing your own food. So I already had the area figured out before I even knew that I wanted to homestead. And then once I decided that I was gonna take those steps, I started researching houses on Zillow, on the internet, just looking stuff up, at the time being in Colorado and having, only a computer to explore that. Trying to find a place that, for one, I could afford, two, that had a livable house, and three, that had enough land that I could start to do these things that I wanted to do. That narrowed it down pretty quickly for me. There were not a ton of choices, and ended up with just a handful of places. Decided to come visit, decided to come look at them, and this was pretty much the only livable place that I would be able to stay in the house and start building it. So life sort of made that decision for me, and I decided to just go for it. So I moved here with my boyfriend at the time, February of last year, which at this point has been, a year and a half. I think in general, other than breaking up with the person that I moved out here with, I think generally everything has gone to plan, because in going forward with this, I really wanted to intentionally let it evolve as it wants to evolve. That's not to say that I haven't encountered any obstacles. I certainly have, but I think in building it, letting it be its own entity, letting it be its own thing with a life and a mind, figuratively, of its own, working with it instead of trying to control everything, has worked out pretty well. When I am wanting to just escape and recenter, I honestly just walk around. I go to the garden, I go to the flowers, I watch the animals. It makes me happy in a way that I cannot put into words, to just exist in the space. One of the heartbreaking things of this is that one of my biggest cheerleaders isn't here to see what this gets to be. I lost my mom about 6 months into this, when everything was just starting, and I know that she would love this space in a very similar way to what I do. And to not be able to share that with her in the ways that I had hoped and in the ways that I had envisioned, it was really hard. Life intentionally made me incredibly uncomfortable and threw some things my way that compounded all at once. which at the moment, at the time, felt like life was trying to break me. But having distance from it now and having perspective on it, I can be grateful for those challenges. I can be grateful for those obstacles, and grateful that they happened in the timeline that they did, to push me to this point. I am genuinely, deeply, truly grateful for that.